Luke Poley here with Miami basketball formerly assistant coach, now newly minted associate head coach Jonathan Holmes. Prior to the men's team kicking off their season this coming Monday against Evansville on the road. Here for our RedHawk Radio Talkathon. Coach Holmes, thanks so much for joining me. Congrats on the promotion, thanks for doing this.
Thanks very much. No, I'm happy to help, happy to be here. Thank you.
So, obviously you've been promoted. Coach Richburg's been promoted. Couple of, things that came from a full offseason for you guys. You brought in transfers. There was a lot of roster turnover.
Yeah.
Just kind of take us through what that offseason looked like for you guys as a staff. It seemed like a very, very hectic one, very busy one for you guys as coaches.
It was a great offseason, but like you said, very, very busy. A lot of moving parts, and just from the standpoint, I think it's college basketball nowadays. And the springtime was. We had some spots to fill with our roster, and obviously we knew we had 5 freshmen incoming, and we were able to add Bradley Dean, Bryce Boltman, and Darwishi Hunter in the transfer portal, and it just, again, you kind of transition from one phase to the next. Once the season ends, and you kind of go back to recruiting and filling the spots that we needed to fill in the spring, and then you kind of get ready for some more recruiting, in the spring and summer, and then the guys return, and then it's back to practice, and then obviously we went to Puerto Rico in August as a team, and you're kind of never, there's this thought process that there's like an off season. It's just kind of you're just transitioning from one part of the year to the next. I wouldn't say there's ever really an off season, but no, it was a really, I think, a very productive spring and summer for us, and we have 8 new guys, and so putting a new group together and being able to kind of get started, and I think the summertime is great for that, and kind of having the lead into Puerto Rico, where we've already played 3 games, and an opportunity to build chemistry. It was really good.
Wanted to ask you about those 3 transfers that you mentioned that you guys brought in. Darwishi Hunter, you brought in from Northern Illinois. He's a guy that was a double-digit scorer in the MAC last year, and you got a couple guys in Bradley Dean and Bryce Boltman that were solid Division II players. Just talk about what those guys bring into your program, veteran players that really feel like they can make an impact right away.
Absolutely. I think the key word there is veteran, experienced guys. I think the adage around college basketball is that you try to get old and stay old, and I think Mike Bray at Notre Dame may have coined that phrase, but you're trying to stay as old and experienced as possible, and obviously we do have a lot of youth still on our team. We had this kind of an interesting roster breakdown where we had 5 or 6 older guys, returning guys, and then all these freshmen, so kind of, and then obviously the 2 soft, not a whole lot in between, but those 3 guys, man, they give you reference points to college basketball, and obviously we start with Darwishi being in the conference. We got a chance to see him up close and personal twice, and just his ability to shoot the basketball. He's a proven guy, like you said, double-figure scorer in this league. 40% guy from 3. An older guy. Just he's all about the right things, and what I mean by that, like, he's a very process-driven guy. He's in the gym all the time. Kind of really setting an example and standard for these young guys to follow. And like I said, I think, with this transfer portal nowadays, you want to have as many, reference points and connection points to guys as possible, because these recruitments happen really fast. It's like, in the high school recruiting process, sometimes you can spend, a year and a half, 2 years recruiting a guy before they ever make a decision. Well, in the portal, this stuff happens really fast. It might be 3 days or a week. And so you better know who you're bringing into your program. And so obviously with Darwishi, just the connection points to him being here locally, being from Cincinnati area, and then obviously being in the league. So really excited about what he brings to our team, his maturity, his presence, and obviously as a proven player. Bryce Boltman has had a tremendous career, at McKendree University, a kid from Nashville, Illinois, which I'm sure a lot of people don't know where Nashville, Illinois is. But he was our last addition to our team in May, and he's a terrific player, man. Kind of a Swiss Army knife, so to speak, of a player. Does a little bit of everything: pass, handle, shoot, really tough. Matchup problem, for other teams. And again, he's a guy that's won, and he took McKendree to the NCAA tournament. He's done it at a really high level. Division II or not, people that aren't familiar with the GLVC, the Division II league that he came from, it's high level basketball. And his ability, I think it was, somewhere in the the framework of, like 17 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Like, he got fouled a ton last year. He gets to the free throw line. Like, he's just the definition of versatility and really fits, how we play. And again, he's got 100+ games under his belt. And so obviously our team really needs that, that experience and what he brings to the table. So, obviously he and Darwishi as our 2 captains have done a great job since they got here this summer. And then the third one, Bradley Dean from Gate City, Virginia. And, Brad, again, another Division II guy that just, can really, really score the ball. Averaged over 20 points a game at UVA-wise. A guy that has, has just got a knack for scoring the basketball. And sometimes, it's like guys that have the ability to just go get a bucket are hard to find. And, he was our first guy that, in the transfer portal that committed to us in the spring. And I think it was just such a great fit. And, again, having connection points. So one of Brad's best friends from Gate City, I actually coached at Elon before I came here. And so, again, just another guy that there's some connection points to our staff and to our situation here before he came. So his ability to play on the ball, off the ball, his speed, and, again, another guy that's averaged 20 points a game in college already. So those 3 guys bring some different things skill-wise to the table for our team, but overall, just their maturity and their experience level. I mean, you're throwing guys in there that, like I said, have over 100 games of experience in college, and that's a big deal nowadays.
So we turn from your veteran presence and those guys you brought in a little bit now to your sophomore class. You got a couple of sophomores that provided some minutes for you guys last year, and Ryan Mabry was the big one who got some minutes down the stretch, and Jaquel Morris as well. What do you expect out of those guys now heading into their second year as they have to play some bigger roles?
Yeah, I'll tell you that they've both those guys have made a real jump, and I think it's such a pivotal summer between your freshman and sophomore year where you can see a real significant growth spike with guys, and even guys that had successful freshman years. It's like, okay, can you build off that freshman year and do it again, or get even better? So I think both of those guys in their own way. It's funny because we go back and, watching film from this time a year ago to where those guys are at now, it's like they're 2 totally different players. And both of them have worked incredibly hard. Both those guys have invested not only in the gym, but their bodies have changed. They've, the way they eat, the way they sleep, their weightlifting routine. Like, both those guys have really committed to getting better, across the board. And we've, they both had great summers. Jaquel's been tremendous, really since the spring. His last handful of games at the end of the year last year into the spring, it's just been kind of a springboard, for him. And he's been kind of a double-double machine for us, throughout. And, we're expecting a big sophomore year out of him, just his ability to impact things at the rim, his ability to rebound. I mean, coming out of high school, he led the state of New York in rebounding. And he's one of those guys that just has a knack. I think rebounding always translates level to level. It doesn't matter if you're in high school, college, YMCA. Like, if you can rebound, you got a knack for the ball, So I think it's something he does at a really high level, and obviously his ability to put pressure on the rim offensively, whether it's screen and roll or posting up on the block. And as you said, Ryan had a terrific freshman year, especially his last couple months. When he got to MAC play, he really took off, I thought, and obviously was honored as one of the all rookie team selections, last year in the MAC, and a guy that we relied on heavily as a freshman, playing 25+ minutes a game for us. And he's taken a step. I think, one of the things that people may not, people recognize offense, they recognize stats. One of the things we've really been complimentary of Ryan on, his defense. Like, watching him a year ago to where he's at now, just like his, and it's not even so much his ability to defend, but his, like, intentionality, if that makes sense, like off the ball, his alertness, he cares so much now. Just from a defensive perspective, he realizes, man, like, as a guard with his size, he can impact the game in more ways than just scoring. And so I think he's done a great job just becoming more of a complete player, a guy that not only can pass, handle, shoot, but can also guard you. And so we're expecting big things out of both those guys, and we'll be relying on both of them heavily.
This summer, you guys got to take the trip down south, go to Puerto Rico. It produced a SportsCenter top 10 play out of the whole trip. That's something that I think a lot of RedHawk fans saw. But
That's right.
Maybe take us behind the scenes a little bit of that. What did you think your team got out of that trip?
It's great. I mean, I think the opportunity to be able, especially again with 8 new guys, and to be able to have, because what the NCAA allows when you take a trip like that, you're allowed to do 10 full practices because, when you're in a when you're not in, quote unquote in season, you're only allowed to work 8 hours a week on the court with your guys, and so it really limits how much you can do. But when you're doing a foreign trip, you're allowed to do 10 full practices before you go. So it allowed us to really get into a full swing of what does an actual practice look like, playing 5-on-5, getting our freshmen acclimated really quickly. And so that part of it was great just from chemistry perspective. And then it gave us an idea of what we have. It's like you can do all the summer individual workouts you want, all the shooting workouts, the cone drills, whatever. But until you start playing 5-on-5, you don't really know exactly what you have, and especially from your young guys. And I think that trip, I've been fortunate over, all the places that I've been over the years to go on some different trips. And I think just the team chemistry, the team bonding, that comes from those trips, when you're there, like when we were in Puerto Rico, it's like we, get a chance to go out and take the guys snorkeling. Some of these guys have never done that before. It's like I know when I took my first foreign trip, I'd never done it, so as a coach. And so I think being able to do things like that and having dinners with these guys, and it's more of a relaxed environment than, because again, it's mid-August, and it's like you're wanting to build some relationships and camaraderie, amongst the players and the staff. And, we got down there, and again, we played 3 games. So we played basically 3 days in a row. And, 2 of the 3 games were, we won by 40 plus. And so from a competition perspective, we kind of handled our business. We did what we were supposed to do. But like we got a chance to like in a game setting, play different lineups, try different things out, experiment a little bit, offensively, defensively. And again, it gave us a great reference point before school even started as to what we had, lineup-wise, position-wise, kind of what, okay, man, we could use this guy in this way, or man, I didn't know we could use him, we could play this way or do this. And so I think the trip on top of, like I said, being a kind of staff and player bonding experience, we got an early read on kind of what our team was going to look like, basketball-wise. So I've always been a huge fan of those opportunities, and I know when I was playing in college, man, we didn't get a chance to do one of those trips, and some of the changes that have been made over the last 20 years have been, pretty cool for these guys. So I know they appreciate it. So
I want to talk about you a little bit now, Coach. I know you're an an Indiana guy, I should say, like Coach Steele, but went down to UNC, played college ball with the Tar Heels, and a lot of your coaching experience between Elon and William and Mary up on that Eastern Seaboard. What was it maybe about this program or Coach Steele that kind of attracted you back to this area of the country?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I said, I'm a Midwest guy. My mom and dad are still in Bloomington. My dad's actually still a high school coach in Indiana, and going into his, I think it's 53rd or 54th year as a high school coach in Indiana, which is still crazy to even say it. But I've got Midwest roots, and like I said, all my family is still in Indiana. So, the opportunity to come back to the Midwest, and I had a pretty unexpected change, honestly. And when I was at Elon, the guy that I was working for, Coach Mike Schrage, had an opportunity to go back to Duke and help John Shire. And so, this was around like mid-April or so of 2 years ago, and so I went through the process and unfortunately did not get the Elon job after a couple weeks, and so kind of found myself kind of in a situation trying to figure out what was next. And all along, Coach Steele and I have had a relationship for many years now. So one of my dad's players, D. Davis, had played for Coach Steele at Xavier, and obviously was a tremendous player for him at Xavier. And so Coach and I have known each other for a long time. And so when he got the job here, he was like, hey, do everything you can if you to get the Elon job. I hope it works out for you, but if not, I've got a great opportunity at Miami. And so when things didn't work out for me, at Elon with the job, the opportunity to come back to the Midwest and be at a place like Miami where, it's like all the places that I've been in my coaching career have kind of had the same, been about like academics, athletics. That combination is something that I've always been really passionate about. And again, knowing of Miami growing up as a kid, just 2.5 hours away, the opportunity to be at another institution that really values both things at a high level was obviously an opportunity that I was, thrilled to have, and obviously getting me back close to home. My mom and dad are loving it, because again, I've been on the East Coast for almost 25 years now before I came back here. So a lot closer for my kids to see their grandparents and get back to Midwest basketball, which is what I grew up with. So.
I know you mentioned you grew up around this area, a couple hours away. How familiar were you with Miami University before you came and took this job? Had you been to Oxford before? Was the interview the first time ever that you'd been in town? How was that?
Not at all. Actually, Coach Coles was in my house for a home visit.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
legend.
So, yeah. So it's funny because I still laugh about that in-home visit, and again, I'll try not to get long-winded because sometimes I can, but so we had Coach Coles and in for an in-home visit, and I remember this was going into my senior year of high school, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was kind of having coaches come in to meet with me, and obviously Miami at the time, I mean, just again, the prestige of the program, the university, the proximity to home, and obviously Coach Coles had done a great job in the recruiting process. And anyway, so my mom had fixed like corn on the cob for dinner, and my dad just made an absolute mess of the corn. So it's one of those things that I still joke about today. Kind of with because Coach Cole's assistant used to be the head coach at Ball State as well. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so we got a lot of funny stories from that. But no, I do have, like I said, I did have a frame of reference when I was growing up as a kid, and having not spent a ton of time in Oxford, but we actually played here when I was at William and Mary as well as an assistant. So I'd been here a handful of times, and obviously knew of the prestige and the tradition of the program and the university. So it felt like I said when I came back, it was like, okay, like I'm back home in the Midwest. So.
Having grown up around that time and, like you said, being recruited by Coach Coles and a time where this was a very, very prestigious program, and now you're coming in and kind of trying to get that program back to where it once was, what does that mean to you as a coach, and what do you think that means to the staff, the history of this program?
It means a lot. I mean, I think, every time you walk into Millett Hall, you walk into the arena and you look up and you see all the championship banners, you see the retired jerseys, the NCAA tournaments, the Sweet 16s. There's a lot of tradition here, a tradition of excellence, and to be a part of it is a big deal. It's like you feel like Coach Steele says this a lot. Like we're out here playing and coaching for all the guys that came before us, and I think being able to as a coach here carry on that legacy and that rich basketball tradition. Is a huge deal, and I feel very fortunate to have an opportunity to be here and to coach here, and like I said, we just want to get this thing back. It's like Miami's rightful place at the top of this league, and again, we have kids visit here all the time, obviously in the recruiting process, and again, we've been here for almost 2 years now, I guess, year and whatever, and it's like you can't have a bad visit here. It's like you come here on this campus, the community, the people, the facilities. I mean, it is top of the line. And again, I think it's every day you come to work here, and it's like, okay, you're a part of a tradition, something that's bigger than yourself, and again, I love it. I love it. So.
Culture was a big thing for Coach Steele when he first came in here that he said he really wanted to establish, and obviously that's something that takes time, but there was a noticeable difference in your group. You won 4 of your final 5 regular season games last year. There was a difference definitely once you guys got into the back half of MAC play last year. Where do you think this team has gone in terms of team culture from the end of last regular season until now?
Yeah, great question. I think that we've just tried to build upon that. It's like I think we were able to finish the year strong and kind of a little bit of a carrot at the end of the year as far as getting to Cleveland, making the MAC tournament when probably there was a stretch there where nobody thought we would. And again, it's a credit to our players. Like, excuse me, they never stopped coming to practice and coming to work. And again, I think if you just stay the course, if you just keep fighting, keep playing, again, I know it sounds very cliche, but we just kept talking a lot to our guys about, man, just keep coming to work every day, keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and eventually this thing's going to turn. And it did. And again, we got hot at the right time, and I think any coach or any program, any team in college basketball, if they had the option, they want to be playing their best basketball at the end of the year. I mean, that's just that's obvious,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we were able to do that. But I think what we've tried to do is let's use the way the year finished as a springboard moving forward and say, hey, right now, like the goal is not just to make the MAC tournament. Like that's, we want to use this and then like, okay, now let's take another big step and, but also kind of channel that and say, okay, well, why did we start winning down the stretch? Like we lost a lot of close games early in MAC play. We were pretty inconsistent, but like what turned? And again, I think using that culture piece, that like, hey man, like we're gonna be known as that team that just keeps playing no matter what the circumstance. We're gonna keep fighting, keep working, and stay in the course no matter what. And again, we've just tried to use the way we ended the year as a springboard here, moving forward into next season.
Schedule for you guys in non-conference, it is a tough one. You got Ohio State at the Power 5 ranks. You go on the road to Columbus to take them on in early December, but you got some really solid mid-majors on there as well. Marshall, St. Bonaventure. You start off the season on the road at Evansville. You've got to play Vermont as well, who's always a very good team out on the East Coast in New England. What does that kind of look like when you're putting that schedule together and you want to test your team? The MAC's a tough league always, but man, you guys made it hard on yourselves the first half of the year.
Yeah. This moron that does the schedule, I don't know what his name is. This Jonathan Holmes. Anyway, the scheduling part of college basketball, it's gotten tougher and tougher over the years, and again, it seems like nobody wants to play on the road, especially at this level. Where you've got a our league is really strong, and reputation-wise, nationally, people aren't jumping at a chance to play a MAC team. They're just not, and especially in a home-and-home series. So you're really trying to figure out, like, okay, who actually wants to play it? Because it's not, as a maybe a casual fan or somebody that says, well, man, why doesn't Miami just play XYZ University or call them up? Well, it's just, if it was that easy, the scheduling piece would be done so far in advance. But it's so much more of like it's kind of like a cat and mouse game. It's like you call somebody and like, yeah, we're interested, and then a week goes by and you never hear back from them. And it's like, okay, well, you told me. It just this back and forth, and it goes on all year. And I think the other dynamic that's impacted scheduling is the portal, right? So people are less likely to agree to play games this time of year for like the following year because they don't know what your roster is going to look like in the spring. And vice versa, because I'm like, somebody calls me today and says, hey, you guys want to start a series? Well, I'm like, well, what's your roster going to look like in 6 months? I don't know that, So it's basically what's happened. It's kind of prolonged the scheduling process. So that's kind of a little behind the scenes, I guess, adage with scheduling. But I think what you want to do is you want to try to create. Again, you want to find success in the non-conference, right? You want to try to build confidence with your guys. But at the same time, you want to push and challenge because we know how good the MAC is, and it's like for us, to go on the road and play some of these opponents, it's a great experience for our guys. To go play at Ohio State, at St. Bonaventure, to have Vermont come here, obviously, who's I think they've won like 75 or 80% of their conference games, or over the past decade. I mean, it's an insane record, tremendous program. But yeah, we want to challenge our guys, but also at the same time try to build confidence along the way. And at the end of the day, right now the MAC's a one bid league. It is, and you might have to go 29-2. I mean, you think about a team like College of Charleston last year that went 31-2 or whatever they were, and it's like, if they had lost a game or two, they probably wouldn't have gotten that large. I mean, it's just the reality of the NCAA tournament in college basketball. So I guess kind of long-winded, but you're trying to do the best you can to build some confidence, to get people to come here to Oxford to start a series, but also give your guys great experiences playing on the road and some of these high major venues and stuff like that. So, it's like, hey, we'll play anybody anywhere, and I think the tougher schedule you play, it can really prepare you the most for MAC play, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to put ourselves in the best position to win this league. So.
In conference play, the MAC standings over the last 5 to 10 years or so, it's almost been set in stone, that top 3, top 4 with Akron, Toledo, Kent State. You've got Ball State up there as well. What is kind of the plan for this program to finally be able to break that, get into that top 4 of the MAC, and really be respected as kind of one of the blue bloods of this conference?
Yeah, I think again, like you said, just trying to get get Miami back to its rightful place at the top with that group. And I think it is, and people, I think sometimes people don't like this word, like, trying to be process driven as much as possible. And again, because I think it is kind of a cliche, but it really is that, because I think if you want to build a program or rebuild a program, however you want to look at it, like, you have to be process oriented, and you can't skip steps. You can't just wake up and say, man, tomorrow we want to win. Well, like, what are the steps are you taking to get to that point? And again, I think, last year I felt like, we got better. Again, you touched on it, kind of the end of the year, we were playing our best basketball. Can we keep taking steps forward? Because, you can't just snap your fingers and say, hey, okay, we're gonna be in that top 4 now. Like, you gotta be able to do it year after year after year. And again, I think, once we're able to break through, and then it's all about then staying up there as well. But I think it's more, our goal or coach's vision is like, we don't want to just be a team that, every X number of years has a good year or is up there. It's like, can you become kind of what you're talking about, one of those programs that year in and year out is in contention for a MAC championship? Because that's what's sustainable, And again, I kind of think back to, my early years when I was at William and Mary, and in our first, handful of years, I worked for a guy named Tony Shaver, who's one of the great coaches in our business, and best guy, one of the best people too. But our first few years, we kind of have a good year, dip down a little bit, go back up, down, and then, our last 7 or 8 years, man, we were in contention every year, and it was, I think, 2 or 3 CA title games, but to your point, it's like once we got there, it was all about, kind of trying to create that sustainability. And I think the way you create sustainability is you obviously got to recruit really well, continue to keep guys and retain guys in your program. I think staff continuity is really important. And then, something that coaches talked a lot about is, what's our identity? What's our identity offensively? What's our identity defensively? And being able to maintain all those things over the course of time enables you to really build and kind of create a sustainable program. And again, I think that's what we're trying to do. And it's like, we know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, there's some tough days. There's some times where you got to just keep forging ahead and keep working. But again, if we all want to get there, if we all want to take this program back to where it belongs, sometimes it's just, there's no secret formula. It's just hard work. That's it. It's hard work, and we'll get there.
Opening night presents its own challenges. You just got to go on the road. You play a team in Evansville that you played a very tight game with last season. What are you guys as a coaching staff looking forward to your group on Monday?
Yeah, just progress. Progress from our 2 scrimmages and progress from practice. Evansville's kind of, the 2 programs kind of in similar situations. Both, obviously they had a new coach last year, just like us, and new program. They have I think 12 new guys this year. We've got 8. So again, just trying to, again, when you start a game, your first game is on the road, especially with a lot of young guys. It's like you want them to, we got to get as comfortable as possible, playing on the road, and we get an opportunity to do that right away. So I think the biggest thing, game 1, in my experiences over all these years, is like, can you just be yourself? Because I think sometimes, like, when the lights come on, when it's, real action, and it's game, the games are here, and finally we're not going to have to worry about our guys playing hard. Like, their energy is going to be through the roof, because this is what they've been working for all spring, all summer, all fall. It's the team that can stay in character the most, and just kind of be rock solid, execute on both sides of the ball. That's the team that kind of gets settled into that first game the quickest, I think usually has an advantage. Because, like, if you look last year at the game here, Evansville jumped out 19-5 on us in the first 8 minutes. And we spent the rest of the game climbing that ladder. And again, we came all the way back. And obviously it was down to a 1-possession game at the end. But I think they settled into the game quicker last year than we did. And again, I think if we can, again, execute, really well on both sides of the ball, and kind of stay in character early on Monday, and just get settled into that first game, and we'll kind of see where it goes.
Miami opens up their season on the road at the Ford Center in Evansville, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Monday night. We'll have that game for you here on RedHawk Radio as well, so make sure to tune in then. Talkathon continues next. Coach Jonathan Holmes, thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck to your group this season.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you having me.